So how do we want to start it?
I don't know. I can just be like,
Maybe you can just get a close-up of like this.
Okay.
Alright, so today, JT, we are going to be removing the stock lead pipe from this Holton bass trombone slide. So just so you can see, this is the one I pulled out the other day. And this is gonna be the one we're gonna pull out now. So first thing we gotta do, take that inner slide out. We're gonna remove the slide ring. And then there's a bumper, sometimes felt, sometimes cork, sometimes rubber, sometimes a spring, sometimes nothing. But in this case, there is a felt. So I've got this little hook tool. So you twist and you pull and twist, and you can see stuff starting to come out here. Old, a little bit of rubber in this one. If you start heating this area up and you've got a nasty felt or a nasty rubber up in there, it's gonna smell terribly. So we don't like that. Okay, so the tool we're gonna use to pull this out is a reverse taper mandrel. So we're gonna use this fat end of the mandrel to pull the lead pipe out this way. So we're gonna stick the skinny end in first. Gently slide that in. We don't want to cause any damage or pull too hard. And you're gonna, as I pull this out, it's gonna catch. And now, see how it's not coming out any further? Mm-hmm. That's because the fat end of the mandrel is catching this bottom part of the hourglass of the lead pipe there. Okay, so we've got this. So now I'm gonna put this into the vise. Ready to start pulling. But first, before we pull, we have to start heating up the mandrel. Let me grab my torch. A little bit of flux to help solder flow. And so the idea of this is you don't want to put the heat directly on this part, because if you keep heating this part too much on the stocking here, you think, oh, I've got to heat this part up in order to undo the solder so you can pull it out. If I keep the heat on here like this, what's gonna happen? This brace is gonna come unsoldered and the whole thing just falls apart.
Okay.
Which we're trying not to do.
Right.
We're trying to pull the lead pipe without affecting the alignment of this slide, without making anything fall apart. So the trick is we heat the mandrel. And the mandrel transfers the heat to the inside of this tube, which is where the lead pipe is. So first thing I'm going to do is put a little flux right on the edge so we can get a little bit of solder flow. And then we're just going to start heating this mandrel with a pretty good cone of heat. And this is going to could take a good minute actually sometimes, of just heating the mandrel, sometimes even more than that. But again, remember, we're not trying to heat up the stocking here. We don't want that, because we can make that solder joint come apart. Just gonna keep putting some more heat here. Let me try this actually. It's still pretty hot. Oh yeah, here we go.
Good practicing.
And there we have it, folks. That is the stock lead pipe for this Holton bass trombone. For next now, we're gonna let this cool off a little bit. Then we're gonna take it to the back and clean it up, make it look, get rid of the corrosion, clean off some of the solder. And then we're gonna hand it over to Josh so he can make a ring for the very end of the lead pipe.
All right, so here we are. Kevin has pulled the lead pipe, and we're gonna hop on over to the lathe and make a little knurled ring to go on there so it can slip in and out and not fall into the horn. So we're gonna go over here, we're gonna face our surface first. Now I started with a little center drilled piece here, but I'm just gonna do a quick little face, and then I'm gonna hit it with the boring bar. .475, so that's going to be good. So our next step is we want to put a nice little decorative knurl on there. And I happen to be quite fond of knurls and have all sorts of different knurling dies. So I go over here to my tool and pick out a knurl that I think we're going to use. That's a pretty cool looking knurl. It's a rope knurl, threaded, and it's a concave one. So when we cut this, we're going to have a convex shape, which half round on there, and we'll use that. So now we have a round bit right there, and I'm going to turn the lathe speed down a little bit so I can knurl, get a little bit more torque on there. And I'll come over here to get set up with my knurl. And there we go. Here we got the cutoff bit. Came right off the lathe. And it should, if we fit this right, go all the way up to the top, nice and flush. And all we have to do is solder that in place, and we got the drop-in ring. Some of that solder, clean up the ring a little bit, so it's a little bit more presentable to the eye. Have all the removal marks and stuff, and come up here with a little bit of color buff. Clean up there. Now, one thing that a lot of people might not know is when you have a surface that you're going to put oil or grease, you do not want it to be shiny and smooth. So since we buffed that up to just clean up some of the leftover solder from the pull, I'm going to go back, wash this off, and I'm just going to hit this with a little Scotch-Brite to give it a little bit of texture so that the grease has something to adhere to.
I see.
I love the hair. Look at the hairs.
The lead pipe all clean. I'm going to throw some tuning slide grease on there and drop it in the horn. And it's a nice tight fit, which is great. So it doesn't move around on the player, and it drops right in.
Bang.
And there we go. That's a pretty cool looking knurl.